Hey, welcome everybody, and we're here with some special guests today, and we'll just go in no order. Karen Fisher, Tricia Mattson, Supriya. I'm going to butcher your last name, Sriraman. And we're here. We're going to talk about evictions and some other questions and things. And really, the reason that I think that I selected women, ladies for this month is because it's also National Women's History Month or something like that. So we'll give a round to the ladies. Awesome.
Something like that.
So we'll just the first question, and this is going to be kind of a hodgepodge, if you will, of how we're going to do this. One thing I want to say, just to make sure that everybody knows it, is I am not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. Ladies, not attorneys, not giving legal advice, but we just want to make sure we say that. We're going to give you opinions. We're going to give you what we think, our beliefs, etc., but we're not giving legal advice. So with that, first question, and we'll just start with Karen, is this, and this will go for all three of you, is really how did you get into real estate? Why'd you start, or how'd you start, and why? So Karen, take it away.
Awesome. So back in 2009, I was active duty captain in the Air Force, and my husband David, he told me about going to this seminar called Lifestyles Unlimited that discussed about how to become a real estate investor. And long story short, we went through the courses and we joined right away, and we've been nonstop ever since. Although initially I was still very involved in the Air Force. And for those who have served, first of all, thank you for serving and being a patron to our great country. But another thing is again, those who serve know how crazy the military is. And so I really wasn't involved actively as my husband was. But later on, I decided to join in, and it's been the most exciting and rewarding thing. As a nurse, I nurture, and this way I continue to nurture folks, giving them a great place to live. But got to do it the right way. And so with lifestyles, their education, and then all the different vendors, including NTN, it has just facilitated and made the process that much easier.
Well, excellent. I'm gonna guess that's your. Let's go with who wants to go next? Tricia, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Awesome.
Well, I started back in 2012 when I moved to San Antonio. My husband is currently active duty in the military, he's Army. And we came to San Antonio, and while he was deployed in Iraq in 2005, I had read Rich Dad, and I remember reading that book and saying, how can I do this? And how is this possible to take what this book is telling me to do and take that and put that into my life and start investing. And so we went to a program back in 2011 in San Antonio, and that started me in real estate investing. We did that program for 1 year, and then after that, we found Lifestyles, and that was it. After joining that program, meeting the members and the mentors, and taking it, full on, I've been investing since 2012, and single family, multifamily, passive, you name it, we're in it. But I was a stay-at-home mom, so my husband works full-time. I have 4 kids. We have 4 kids. And I wanted to do something, for myself outside the home. And my passion and my love for real estate and renovations is just, it all worked out for, it was a way for me to make income and to multiply your net worth and just be contributing to the family. So that's my story. And here we are today.
Awesome. Are you timing yourself? Because that was like exactly 2 minutes.
Not at all.
I don't know if it really was. Oh, and last but certainly not least, Supriya, your turn.
Thank you, Mike. So how I got started was I was always fascinated by real estate. I'm grew up in India and coming from a country like India where we never owned any real estate. We always lived in rental houses, and I've always wanted to own a house. So having come here, once I came to the US, I graduated with a master's from Texas A&M, and I wanted to buy my own house. And not only that, I wanted to also buy rental property. So I was overcompensating for everything that had happened in my past. So I did that. I started off buying single family by myself. That at that time I didn't know anything about lifestyles. I bought single families, did it by myself, and then I wanted to go big. I didn't know how to do it. That's when I discovered lifestyles in 2014. I came to Karen's husband David's the first 2-day seminar, and I joined. I was so impressed with everything I joined, and the rest is history. I've been investing through lifestyles, education, mentoring, and they have amazing vendors. I use Mike's NTN for my screening, and I've been very successful in real estate thanks to lifestyles and also the associations. I shouldn't forget AAGD, NAATAA, and the vendors that lifestyles gives us. Thank you.
That's something to say that folks that haven't heard about lifestyles or aren't in the know of local associations, get involved. That's where you're going to learn. I don't want to turn this into a commercial for any certain organization, but there's some awesome ones out there, and these three ladies are very familiar, as I am myself, with lifestyles. But get involved. Look around, and it's out there for you. So today we're going to try to really focus on evictions and kind of what's going on out there. We will get to the questions we can get to as time permits. We want to be able to take some questions at the end as well. So what we're really looking to is probably getting into a part 2 of this. I don't know when we can do that exactly, but that's kind of the plan. I don't want to shortchange you, but really, and I'm going to throw this out, and whoever wants to answer, go ahead and kind of jump in, and if you don't, we'll call on you anyway. So just answer. And really, the pandemic was a big thing last year, and it kind of still continues to be a big thing. And how did it alter, say, the course of your business? I mean, did it take you a while to kind of realize this was really happening, and it wasn't, a week to stop or 2 weeks to stop or 3 months to stop it? It's still ongoing. So whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
I guess I'll start. I could definitely attest that it altered the process that I did, our business model. In a way, it definitely didn't. It was a very unique thing to do, and I was lost. And truly, I cannot say I can't continue to just. I love what Lifestyles has done. Lifestyles Unlimited, they helped us. Lynn Murrow, she's the vice president, and she had tons of classes out there just to help us and guide us through the laws and everything, how to legally do things with the pandemic. And not only that, as well as the local apartment association, I'm involved in San Antonio Apartment Association, and they too had a lot of just trying to help guide you through this crazy chaos that is now the pandemic. And without their tutelage, it really, I was extremely lost and very frustrated. And so I had to learn how to change what we were doing, making sure that it was still legal and binding and that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that.
What? Yeah, I was just gonna ask. Tricia, I was gonna shoot over to you. So I know that you've got a lot of systems and things in place, and did those systems kind of go with what was happening? Did you have to tweak them a bit? How did that go for you?
In the very beginning, actually, it wasn't as crazy for me because from the minute that we have applicants inquire and then apply, we get them on the application process through online. So everything is basically done online. Your application, your payments, your screening. So there was no need for us to be at the physical property to have people come in and view. For the fact is, like, we would have, in the very, very beginning, we would have the units unlocked. We would schedule their times. We would let them do one person at a time viewing. But for the majority of the part, everything was already taken care of through the systems of having it be automated through payments from the applications for rent. So there was no need to be physically at the property because we don't have an office on site, but we would schedule appointments and then have people walk in during their time frame. But for the most part, we already had it in place prior to COVID, so it didn't negatively affect us.
So without even knowing it, that's pretty exciting. Without even knowing it, you had a system in place that was already going to largely handle the situation that we faced. So that's awesome.
And I think because we didn't have an office on site, so we've always been online, and we've always had to accept payments through the application process through the online portal. So, there was no money orders exchanging. It was all about being automated. So it actually is to our benefit that we handled it that way, because we didn't have, it's the interruption in business.
Gotcha. So Supriya, you're up.
Yes, what I'd like to say is it did alter the course of our business because we were scrambling when this happened. One, there were too many moving parts, and we relied heavily as business owners and operators and syndicators, all of that. We didn't have enough time to do all the reading. So we got that. I depended on Lifestyles and other organizations like AAGD and TA to give me that. But in the meantime, I had to execute and implement. So the things we had to quickly pivot and change was to shut down the amenities, make sure we had a plethora of supply of hand sanitizers, which was completely, we didn't do that before. We had to close down the offices and do it only by appointment. We were allowing our staff to not to go anywhere without masks. We were providing masks in the office, just things we hadn't done. Toilet paper. I was going to Costco every day, standing in line. I had never done this before for my business, but I was standing in line to get toilet paper and wipes and sanitizers. And we shut down the swimming pool, the laundry room, but laundry room was open only for residents. So we had to alter quite a bit, and doing appointments, doing our tours only by appointments. Residents were asked not to come into the office without an appointment. So we had to alter quite a bit and send out notices. And we had to pivot very quickly. Everything was happening in real time. We had to protect our employees, our residents, tell them what to do during COVID. We had to stay up to date with what City of Dallas was telling us, and all the shutdown and the moratorium and all that. So it was quite a ride last year.
It seems like it's never ending, and maybe we're coming out of this. But so let's talk about maybe the most important. Well, it's not the most important part. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But let's talk about payment patterns and what you saw. And Supriya, I'll go back to you on this and let you start. What did you see? How were your residents affected? By the pandemic, and what did payments look like?
Great. So I'll take that. I was very lucky and blessed that all my residents were paying, every single one, all through COVID, and it continues even today. So it's very different from what the other panelists might say or what others are experiencing. I had 100% collections every month and zero delinquency. But what changed, and this is again a little bit talking to the previous question, that I had to accept partial payments, and I had to do payment plans for a few residents, maybe 1 or 2% of the residents, no more than that. So these were the residents who worked in restaurants and bars and industries that were affected by the shutdown, and they weren't able to go to work. And my residents, they all know me. We bring in good residents. The screening process, which we might get to in a few minutes, talk about that. It's very good. And our rental criteria, they would come to me and say, I want to pay your rent. I don't want to be evicted. What can I do? And I'd set up the payment plan. And that was a little different. So it was more work on us, where we had to remember they'll pay so much on this day. They'll pay so much this next Friday. They'll pay so much. And we had to do the payment plans for them. And I've been lucky that way. It's been good for me. 100% collecting zero delinquency.
That's good to hear, and I mean we've heard it, but it's good to let everybody else hear it as well. Karen, Trish, you want to answer the question?
I
All
can go
right.
next.
I think that Supriya covered a lot of it, so I don't want to be redundant. But I mean, I had a few because they were in the restaurant business, but it really was again changing my process and the first time ever collecting partial payments. So it was just learning how to do things and making sure that communication between the residents and us was key. And so I think that was definitely the thing was just being out there and making sure that they had communicated with me.
Mm-hmm. And Karen, where are you going later?
Eviction court.
I want to go to eviction court with you. Take us with you.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, we're gonna make that happen.
So
That's awesome.
following up on what Karen said, just if I can get 30 more seconds, what I remembered as she was talking about the payment plans and all that was that when this first started, I remember we called every single resident, and that's how we altered the business, where it took us a whole day. We were reaching out to every single phone call saying, are you okay? Would you like help with your payment plan? Is your job? We couldn't directly ask about the job. We say, are you financially impacted? So we made them comfortable saying, if something has been impacted, something has changed with your money situation, contact us. So the next month when April payments came along, they felt comfortable to contact us. They didn't think we'd evict them. So that was one thing we did, where every single resident was contacted at least 1 or 2 times, asking them how they were doing, how their family was doing, and to ask what we could do to help.
So kind of really seems like the most important factor has been, and I think we've all said it, or ladies, you've all said it, is just having open communication. That's become the key. It was very, very vital to how everything worked, and I think that it worked well for most that I talked to over the course of the last year. You're just kind of echoing what they've said. Have there been issues? Have there been folks that maybe set up a payment plan and they didn't follow through? There have been, but overall, it's been pretty good, and it's been pretty good with those that were willing to communicate with their residents about what's going on. So I think that's important to. So maybe we can kind of adjust this in a way. We're still kind of hover around the eviction piece, but I think I want to talk about rental criteria. And who wants to touch this question, or I will direct it. Maybe we'll talk to Tricia. Since you've got the systems in place, and you all do, but what rental criteria, with respect to rental criteria, what are your thoughts on good rental criteria and how vital it is to have that in place?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a big one. I mean, that's where it all begins, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that first application, and what's on that application is very vital to what you put in your property. So in the beginning, Lifestyles taught us how to properly screen, and with your help as well. I know there was numerous times I'd call you, Mike, and say, hey, what do I do about this? And we'd go over the NTN report and talk about, specific things on there. But for the most part, our rental criteria is on income and employment and rental history. So, we want to make sure those hit all of our targets, that we're putting in people that can afford the apartment, that don't have delinquencies that are outstanding to other apartment owners. I mean, it's just very important that you're being thorough on your application and your rental criteria.
So here's thank you, Trish. That's excellent, and I think we all agree. As we start to move forward, as we're starting to see eviction courts open back up, and dealing with folks that are refusing to, maybe I don't know if I want to say refusing to pay, but they're just not paying. Moving forward, what are your thoughts on renting to people who maybe they weren't evicted during the moratorium because it couldn't be, but maybe they've got a terrible payment history, let's just say, from during the pandemic. How do you think you'll look at those applicants directly versus how, we would look at them before the pandemic? And I think, Karen, I'll go to you with this one, since you're headed to there now.
Thanks for that loaded question. Well, you know what? Actually, just like every other applicant, they have to meet the criteria.
Mhm.
Everyone is vetted the same way. I don't alter it. If they meet it, they meet it, and if they don't, I move on. It's nothing personal, but they have to meet those qualifications. It's just standard. Looking at what's happening with the eviction and that kind of situation, I don't know how to answer that right now, because I'm just still following the same criteria that I've had in the past.
Well, I think that's exactly how you answer the question. Is we have criteria, it's written, everybody knows what it is, and we're not going, well, gosh, you didn't pay during the pandemic for whatever reason. That's irrelevant. We're just sticking with our criteria. So I think that's a perfect way to answer the question. Okay, let's talk about felonies, and let's talk about good felonies. This is not really eviction related, but I think I want to talk about it anyway. Let's talk about, if you've ever thought of this, we can't say we're not going to rent to felons any longer, but so we have to start kind of going, okay, what's a good felon, or what's a good felony, let's say, conviction versus a bad felony conviction? And speaking with related to your screening criteria, what are your thoughts on that? I'm going to throw this, I think, to Supriya. But what is a good felony versus a bad felony? If you thought that terminology through, and I'll just flip it to you and go.
Right. Of course. So yes, you're right that we cannot, in our screening criteria, we can no longer say that anything about crime. And first, just to talk about felony, what is a felony versus a misdemeanor, right? Felony is worse than a misdemeanor. And I do differentiate on the felonies. So a good felony versus a bad felony. Felonies include murder, rape, burglary, kidnapping, arson. And some of these, if it involves danger to property or people or to animals, it's a definite no. If they have ever done any of that before, that's a no from me, for my criteria. But if it's a theft, and that if it's not a repeat one, if it's older than 7 years per my criteria, we will take that into consideration. It's a case by case. If it's just a theft and they haven't done it, they've had good rental since then, so I will feel comfortable bringing them into my property, which they've had good rental history after that. It's with an additional risk fee and an additional deposit. That's kind of the only one I accept at this point. Anything to do with property damage or any harm to humans or animals, it's a no.
Okay, so I was taught over the years before that we had really the felony versus misdemeanor piece. Is I was taught any event or any conviction that affected person, place, or property that we're gonna have to consider, and frankly we weren't going to take you, and then the felony piece came into play. It's just an interesting take. I had never heard this concept, and I saw somebody in the chat say violent versus nonviolent felony. I think that's another way to look at it. But good. I never thought of what's a good felony versus a bad felony. I always thought, and maybe it's just a stigma of the word felony. If you're a felon, you've been convicted of a felony, I don't think I want to rent to you. And then what's the circumstances that surrounded that situation? So it's I just think it's an interesting topic. Tricia,
Can I ask a question to Supriya?
please.
So when you have an applicant that has a criminal or something on your report, do they also have like delinquencies? Because I know in my past, if I've ever had anything that would be on their report, they wouldn't fit our criteria for income or rental history. Do you run into that as well?
If they don't, then they denied on basis of that. If everything else looks good and this is the only criteria, if they have collections greater than what they're supposed to have, or if they owe a previous landlord, it's automatic denial. Or if their
Right.
credit report shows up that that's no credit, bad credit, they're automatically denied. If
Right.
all those pass, and if this is the only sticking point, if this is the only one in contention, then we offer them we tell them they're denied unless they pay a additional risk fee and additional deposit.
Right. And that's the situation I've had in the past. If somebody had something on their report, it would be hand in hand with delinquencies, no rental history. So I wouldn't have to just base it off of a criminal background. It would base it off of their no credit or lack of credit or negative delinquencies and no rental history. So that would be one of the things I was wondering, if you had that same scenario when your applicants apply and they have a felony or a misdemeanor.
I do. That makes it easy. Like, right, Trish, you can tell them, hey, you're denied because you owe previous landlord, or your collections amount, you have too much debt, or your debt to income ratio, or if they don't make income. That's easy. That's just black and white.
Yes.
When it comes to this, it gets those are the easy things. I do that too. If any of those are a problem, they denied.
This takes me back, and anyone who's maybe heard me talk before, when I was, I don't know, young in college, and I had this great idea that I wanted to lease apartments, and it worked well. But point being is, I had this case where this gentleman had been in prison for years and years and years, and we of course had to deny him. But this was a big man, and I mean, I'm not a little guy, but I'm not. This guy was just ginormous, and I just remember looking at him, looking up, and saying, "Well, sir, you're denied." And he said, "Well, why?" And I said, "Well, that murder charge." And the eyes, I felt like a cartoon, because I was here and he was here, and we went backwards, and he kind of towered above me, and I was like, "Oh, this is the end of my life." And they got me away from him. Our office setup was very open, and so they got me away from this gentleman and got him out the door. And they're like, "You idiot," and maybe some other words I won't say here. But I'm like, "What? Isn't that why we declined him?" He's like, "No, he's got bad credit." Oh, and so point being is that you kind of brought this memory back of just tell him that. I mean, no need to sort of rub it in his face. And I didn't mean it that way, right. But I think he took it that way. But no, he knows what he's done. He served his time. Find another way. So, yeah. I'm not sure how to follow that one up now. Oh, Joe, Karen.
Oh, I'm good. Y'all covered it. But I do.
The rental criteria comes in, right? So we talked about these felonies. Make sure you have that in your rental criteria. You can't just verbally tell them, "Oh, I found this. Now you have to give me an extra deposit, an extra risk fee." But where is it? Is it written? So be sure. So maybe, Mike, that might be one of the questions here. So that's a good segue into that. Why don't you?
Yeah, it is. We kind of touched on it before. So I was kind of thinking whether or not we need to touch on it again. But really, ladies, did any of you not have written criteria provided to your applicants when they apply that they sign off on?
So I use Blue Moon, and with the apartment association, they have a rental criteria, and I just tweak it to what fits our properties. And within there, once it's all embedded in there, so they're acknowledging right away that they've read the rental criteria. And yes, as Supriya mentioned, ours is specified. It is on a case by case, and that these are a definite no's on what are not allowed in our properties, if that is what comes up in NTN reports. And we also do have certain parameters where it also has date. So X amount of years beforehand, I mean, a lot of people, they tend to do things when they're younger, not thinking of how it's going to affect them in the future. And so as long as nothing has come up and on their NTN reports, then I'm good. And it's just a way to just go, hey, all right, let's go. Let's move forward, and can't change the past. Let's just keep moving forward. So.
Yep, that's right.
Tricia, you want to?
Yes, all I'd say is, yes, have it in writing, and definitely put those dollar amounts. Also say you will be charged this, have them sign it, and they have to sign your rental criteria. Otherwise they'll say, this wasn't given to me, I didn't sign it. Maybe they just sent it to me and I did. So review your rental criteria one more time, make sure that you have it in black and white, saying if you're a previous landlord, you will be denied. But a lot of times what I've done is, if they owe maybe $50, $100 to the previous one, they don't realize it, I say, go pay that. And once they confirm that they've paid to the collections agency or them, then I do let them in. So.
But that goes along with that communication piece, is being open and upfront and honest with them at the same time. I think that simply breeds the same in return. So that's good. We're getting to a point where we're kind of in between maybe some questions and, maybe continuing the discussion. So I think that maybe before we get into kind of the final questions I want to ask is, and maybe I'll just, Trish, do you think that there was something, we kind of touched on this, but again, we'll go back to it, that happened at all mistake-wise during, as, I don't know, February, March of last year kind of rolled through, any kind of common mistake you might have made? And maybe you didn't actually, maybe your systems were in place during the pandemic that affected you in any way, or your operation. Maybe
we're talking about in the very beginning of
yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back and.
I don't think I have anything to contribute to that part. I'll let one of the other ladies take that one.
All right, any, many, money, Karen.
Oh, wait, what? Actually, I was answering a question because you said Tricia. So I was typing a question. Can you surmise what you just asked Tricia? Something about the beginning of the pandemic? What?
Yeah, I was just thinking, is there a mistake that you feel like, kind of like writing a question in the middle of our discussion, that? No kidding. Is there a mistake that maybe you can identify that happened at the beginning of the pandemic that affected you, or that if you could go back, you'd love to be able to change that mistake, and having moved forward, and then being able to move forward with it? I don't think this question's coming out the way I mean it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would call it a mistake per se. I think it was just a matter of being fluid and learning and just adapting to the ever changes within our industry. I mean, everything that we always were taught not to do, partial payments, or even our lease itself. It's a legal binding contract. It was pretty much null and void. That was a big thing that I did a lot of face palms because I couldn't fathom it. But I think it was more of just learning how to adapt is more so how I got it out.
I should have thought of a better word, incidentally, ladies. That mistake. I shouldn't have used that word.
Yeah, I guess the best word is adapt, because that is what we had to do, is adapt to partial payments and, things of what Karen said, is we had to move with it, be fluid.
I think I can take that a little bit. It's not a mistake, but it's probably miscommunication, where what was happening is I've learned to word it differently even with my leasing agent, the staff in the office, because we had people coming in saying they make so much, and they would ask them, say, do you think I qualify? I make so much. And we would say, yeah, with this amount of money, you would qualify. But what we had happen, it's a repeat pattern all through the pandemic, that they would apply, but what they were showing was unemployment checks coming in and unemployment deposits. So we changed that. So it was not a mistake, but it was kind of, when we said, yeah, you'll be approved, they'd get mad at us saying, but you told I'd be approved. I told you I make so much. And there were a few applicants where we had to tell them, I'm sorry, what we go off is income. This is unemployment. Income is from your employment. So we had to apologize to them and move on. So now we are more careful in the office communication, how we communicate, saying unemployment income is not considered your employment income. So you will not qualify if it's unemployment. So that's.
You're right. We had a bunch of that in the very beginning when COVID hit. People with a massive amount of money trying to get into the property but had no income, knowing that they couldn't get evicted if they weren't going to pay their rent. So yeah, I remember that now.
And I think that just along with also communicating with your residents, it's also communicating with your team so that they too can be aware of how to adapt with the changes that had befallen us with regards to income, especially. So that was a big thing. It's just making sure that, hey, we don't say the wrong words or it's update our criteria to specify that unemployment is not considered income. So
that's good. So I think we'll get into what we're going to call the final question. And again, I think we have more than enough for a part 2, maybe a part 3 and 4. Again, thank you all for participating. This has been awesome. But this is the final question. I don't know where we'll start, but it's to all three of you, and it's largely this in the spirit of Women's History Month. What's a piece of advice that you give to women and or men who are looking for, they're interested in real estate investing, and aside from just do it, get it done, what would you say to them if you could? And who wants to start? Ready, go.
I'll take it. For me, I would say if you were to start, go to where you see success, because there's so many options out there. And if you don't see that people are actually doing and having deals done and being successful at it, then that's not where you want to be. You want to be where the people are doing deals and growing their net worth and being successful at their real estate. So that would be my key, is to find that group that fits you, that is successful. And of course, I'll promote lifestyles every day, because I could not have gotten to this point in my life where I'm at without this mentor group.
Excellent. Thank you. Karen, Supriya?
All right, I'll be quick. Definitely, I surround myself with like-minded people. That is huge, is having positive mindset, that abundance mentality, that you just feed off of each other, all that positiveness, and people that'll help boost you, men or women alike. I've unfortunately, working in the healthcare, women could be catty and they would eat their young, and that was not a nice thing. So I'm not the type that does that. I want to make sure that I change the thing and support people. I want to help give them a hand up. So that's what I like to do, is just making sure that you surround yourself with like-minded, positive folks.
Thank you.
Amen to that.
Awesome. Supriya?
I don't have much more to add than what the other lady said. Seriously, because that's what you want. You want to surround yourself with like-minded and positive people, and you want to learn from the ones who have done it before you, so you're not reinventing the wheel. And that's I know we have many people on this listening in, and that's what I tell them. Don't try to do it yourself. Have a team, have other people who've done it, get advice from them, and whether you're a woman, a man, somebody just starting off, doesn't matter. Any of you can be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding with our group, because Supriya is an NAA award winner.
Yep.
And that is a big deal, because I applied for that as well. And it's pretty lengthy process to do, and she took it down. And I'm telling you, I think we're on 13 or 14 years of year after year of awards, and that is the proof of success.
Yep.
To win those awards are a big deal.
Thank you.
Awesome. I don't know how we can take questions. I think there's a whole bunch of them. April,
Yes, we do have a few questions, Mike, that came in. So the first question is for Supriya. We had two people who asked, what is the amount of the risk fee when you mentioned, when we were talking about the felonies, what is the amount of the risk fee?
Right. So my risk fees start at $500. So it says there in my rental criteria, clearly it can be $500 or above. And my additional deposit. So risk fee is something you get to keep. A fee is something you do not need to return to the applicant or the resident. Just and the deposit is I require 1 month at least of additional deposit, depending on what it is. In some cases, I have taken 2 months of additional deposit. So if your standard deposit is $150, you ask them for another month in addition to the risk fee. And it's up to you what you do. Your screening criteria could say you're doing $100 of a risk fee, or it just depends on your criteria, but it's very clearly laid out in my screening rental criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Supriya. So the next question, and this is for anyone who would like to answer. It says, does going to shorter term leases result in less risk to the management of the property, or does it have an effect on the evictions?
I'll answer that. We've actually gone from a 12-month lease to a 6 or even a 3-month lease. It's actually helped. We've seen more, I guess you can call it, how would you call it? I don't know. I think just the business model changed a little bit, but our residents are okay with it. Our new prospects, and then once this changes, then we will start extending the lease terms.
So Karen, I have a question about that.
Sure.
When you do 3 or 6 month leases and then their period comes due, do you still renew them at the same rate when you extend their lease?
So actually, I've had folks that I've just bumped them up ever so slightly, something very minuscule that they won't feel, if you will. But it still keeps them there. It changes their lease term versus a month to month, and then it gives us that little extra bump. So I am able to do that, and I will go ahead and either do a 3-month or a 6-month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions here. So the next one is, do we have a feel for if the moratorium will be extended after the end of March?
Ooh.
No.
I'm not answering that.
If I had a crystal ball.
I know, right?
We can, I can tell you this, as of yesterday, at some point, there are 3 states who have now said, there's a judge in 3 states have now said that they feel like it's unconstitutional or whatever words they use. So I think you'll see more of that, but who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
Right, because I think NAA put out something on the 15th about Supriya. Did you see that article?
I did.
Okay.
And we have one last question that's come in. Are JPs allowing eviction filings? If a resident files for fraudulent CDC filing, are JPs open to challenges?
I'll take that one. Actually, we have the eviction. I'm going to the resident submitted via text a CDC deck, and I have an attorney in place and we're contesting it. So each place is different. Locally, you're going to have you have to see what your JP does, but RJP, they're not abating the cases as long as it's contested, and they are hearing the cases. So at least for Bexar County, which is city of San Antonio resides in, they are seeing the cases.
Yeah, we have one actually as well in eviction. This is actually his third time because the judge has him paying every single time, and he makes it. He does pay it, but every month he's at the same predicament, and he's has income because he's military, so there's no reason he should be paying his rent. But we're able to bring it to court and get that payment.
I saw somebody asked in the chat if we have to do a 30-day notice or a 3-day notice. Now that depends also on where you live. I could only speak for San Antonio. We have a 3-day notice to vacate. That is our thing, but so I'm not sure how, because I think other cities, Dallas, Supriya, does Dallas have a different time frame, right? Because I think you guys, they did a 30-day or something.
And it's not a 30-day notice to vacate, it's a 30-day notice of intent to give them a 3-day notice to vacate. So after the 30 days, we still have to issue a 3-day after that. It's, yeah. And then,
and this is one of the things that I'm so proud of, all the up the apartment association in San Antonio, a lot of the independent rental owners, a lot of the folks just in San Antonio, we went and we fought against them trying to do an additional 60-day notice to cure, which would have given 63 days for residents that notice. And so luckily that motion failed and we only have the 3-day. But as also Lynn was saying, that under the CARES Act, you still have to, it still applies. So just make sure that wherever y'all are living in, that you follow the right rules and laws there.
Yes, and just what Lynn said, and this is important, regardless of where you're living, if you have, you fall under the CARES Act, you're still required to give the 30 days.
Yep.
So regardless of where you are, if so check your loan and check what you have. Are you under the CARES Act? Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, everyone. That's all the questions at this time.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you again. With anything else you want to say?
Are there any other questions?
Time to get our green drinks on.
we have another 5 or 8 minutes, so just to give people if any last questions that come in.
We do have a question. I'm just asking, is anyone using a lease that will renew on month-to-month basis with an expiration date 12 months until notice given by renter or owner?
It's all our leases are like that, right? Every single lease, even if they automatically renew month to month. For instance, if I have a TAA lease, which I use, and any of you can use any lease, you can say this is a 1-month lease, for instance, but the lease automatically says that once it ends, until the resident gives notice to vacate, it automatically renews. So say today's March 17th, I start a lease today saying it's only a 1-month lease and you're required to give me 30-day notice to vacate. So if the resident does not give me a 30-day notice to vacate, lease starts today, it ends April 17th, but it automatically renews month by month, month to month, until they give me that 30-day notice or until I give them a notice of non-renewal.
Supriya, you're also on Blue Moon, correct?
I am on Blue Moon. That's correct.
Okay.
Always, yes. Can't do without Blue Moon. You need
Nope.
that. Correct.
Thank you, Supriya.
Thank you. There was one last question. I think that's a great one. Thomas DeAndrea asked, under the CARES Act, can you evict for something else? Absolutely.
Yes.
That is only for non-payment of rent. And evicting for something else is more difficult, anything other than non-payment of rent, but it is possible. Say they're engaging in criminal activity. Make sure you have documentation, though. It cannot be that your personal bias or something. They're doing drugs, or they're tearing your property up or something, then definitely you can.
Great. We do have one more. If you do a shorter term than 12 months lease, do you fall under other regulations being a short-term rental?
No.
We're not, at
Yeah.
least for here, short term would be less than 30 days, where it would fall that like a hotel, like an Airbnb. That's
Right.
not what we're doing. I can't speak for anybody else. We're doing at least a minimum of 3 months.
Right.
So we won't fall under that other regulation. Ladies?
Yep, that's right.
Same thing.
Somebody asked, is there a way to look for criminal history of residents? I replied saying, screen them, use NTN. So I just,
Yeah.
so that's how you get, you look up somebody's, and when you use any screening, and I use NTN, so I can speak to NTN, but you can use any screening company of your choice, screen them, it will return their credit history, their criminal history, anything you asked for, it'll return all that.
And what NTN returns is a fast reply. That's what I love
Oh
about
gosh,
Mike.
yes.
Oh, within 10 minutes, I usually tell when people come in to apply, I say, you apply, I can get your screening results. I can tell you by the end of today, or maybe the next 10 minutes, or that whether you're approved or not, at least in terms of credit. And then I'll need to look up your rental history, and I'll need to look up your income and all that. So I've had people who are in the office, they apply in my office, and I tell them within 5 minutes, I do the screen. Within 5 minutes, I can say your credit came back, it looks good. I just need to verify your income and rental. You're approved. You're as good as approved. If you think those two are okay, pay me your deposit. So,
And just to add, sometimes you have to have discussions at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning too, huh?
And sometimes you text and say, Mike. He's like,
I sent him an email. I
okay,
don't
I'm
text.
coming.
Yeah, I'm doing that screen at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So Mike, don't give out my secrets.
I didn't name anyone.
We know who's up at 4 in the morning.
You have one more question that came in. It says, can you give a notice of non-renewal at the same time as the 30-day notice to vacate?
They're one and the same, right? If a 30-day notice to vacate has been given, it's either they give it. So they give us a 30-day notice intent to move out. That's what the resident gives us. What we give them is called a non-renewal. So it's the same thing that they need to vacate. The non-renewal from Blue Moon, the form, it says that this tells you that we do not intend to renew your lease, and your last day here, you must vacate by such and such date on this date. And you can issue that 6 months prior. I have done that to people where in December, I tell them that I'm not renewing their lease that's coming up, that's ending in April or May of the next year. So you can issue the notice of non-renewal at any time. And the same thing, they can give us a 30-day notice, 90 days, 100 days prior, saying, I do not want to, I will not be renewing my lease.
But make sure the number
Supriya.
of days is whatever's specified on your lease.
Correct. Yeah, if
Yeah.
it's 60, then
Supriya, if you give that far advance notice, do you have kickback with residents, like any kind of like just start to, not pay or
no, I haven't
crazy
had that
service
problem.
calls? I mean,
I haven't had that problem. I issued 2 notice of non-renewals during the pandemic, and because they have good credit, they don't want to ruin their credit. And I tell them sometimes I tell them the reason why, and I say between now and then, if there are any lease violations, I can evict you based on your lease violations, not a non-payment of rent. So, yeah, during the pandemic, I have 2 people right now who are on notice of non-renewal. You don't follow the rules on my property, you're not there. You're gone.
Anne asked if I consider student, what does she say? Student, oh poop, I just.
medical.
That's okay. Student debt.
Student debt or medical debt.
Bad
And again-
credit.
And again, it goes based on what I have on my criteria. So I can't deviate from that. So, Anne, just to answer your question, what does your criteria say? If it's specified on there, then that's how I look at it. I don't deviate, because then I'm breaking fair housing. So I just make sure that whatever the results come up and it aligns with my rental criteria, then that's how I go. So if you want to consider that, then you got to have it written in there.
Well,
And it's 1,300.
I guess it's a wrap. Karen, good
Yeah,
luck.
great. Good luck,
Thank
Karen,
you.
with your eviction. Thank
Ladies
you.
and
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank
Karen,
you.
let us
Maybe
know
we
the
have a
outcome of
part
that one.
two. Yeah, if we have part 2, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah,
But I have-
perfect.
Send us suggestions
have
on what
had
you might want to
evic-
see in part 2. We'd love to hear what you
Yeah,
might.
and any questions that we might have missed in the chat, we're going to review those, or well, I'm going to review them, or somebody's going to review them, and make sure they're included in part 2 as soon as we've got agreement on doing part 2. So again, thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having
Alright,
us.
Happy St.
Thanks,
Patrick's
everyone.
Day, everyone.
Happy St. Patrick's
Take care.
Day.
Patrick's Day, I know.
Bye.